We are now just 28 days from the Georgia Senate runoff elections. Remember, if Democrats win both the races, they will take control of the Senate. If they don't, the GOP and Mitch McConnell, they will keep the gavel. Early voting, it starts next week, and turnout obviously will be a huge factor. If Democrats hope to win, they need people of color to come out in force. Yesterday, we spoke about the African-American vote, which helped Joe Biden turn the state blue. And today, we're discussing the Hispanic vote. And RFL's D.C. field producer, Annie Anderson, she caught up with former HUD Secretary Julian Castro, who discussed that and more.
We've been hearing that turnout will play a major part of this election, but demographic groups are also expected to make a big impact. And that's why former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development Julian Castro came here to Athens, Georgia, a college town, to spread the word about getting out to vote.
Buenas tardes. Good afternoon.
College students in Athens listening eagerly to former Housing and Urban Development Secretary Julian Castro speaking on the importance of voting during January's Georgia Senate runoff elections.
We can't take any chances. We got to get off the sidelines and into the voting booths. Y'all saw how many of these races came down to a couple of hundred votes, sometimes a couple of dozen votes. We need everybody's vote.
Castro in the Peach State to campaign for Reverend Raphael Warnock and Jon Ossoff, saying sending the two Democrats to the Senate could be the deciding factor in getting a COVID stimulus package approved.
What's at stake is whether we're able to make sure that everybody is able to get through this pandemic without hundreds of thousands of more people dying, that millions of people are able to stay in the apartment or the home they live in without being evicted or kicked to the curb, that we can ensure people get back to work and small businesses get back up and going. The stakes are that if Mitch McConnell is still in charge of the United States Senate in January, then Joe Biden is going to have a very, very tough time making sure that everybody can prosper in this country.
Castro firing up students for December 14th when early voting begins.
I love Secretary Castro, and I'm so glad he's out here. I feel like he's a very progressive voice in our party, and I like that we have people out here supporting that.
I think it was very inspirational, and it just made me feel important because, like Julian Castro said, it came down to a few hundred votes and a few thousand votes here in Georgia, and I was a part of that few thousand votes.
Castro saying their votes will be crucial.
You know, they say about young people that they're the future, but really they're the present. They're also the ones who have the biggest stake in what happens in the years to come, because they're going to have to live with the consequences of decisions that are made in Washington on climate change, on student loan debt, on investing in our economy. So they have the biggest reason to get out and vote for Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock.
This year, much of the emphasis has been put on the importance of getting African Americans out to the polls. While not diminishing the importance of that group, Castro underlined the importance of the Latinx vote in Georgia as well. The
Latino community, Latinx community is growing quickly in Georgia. There are 377,000 Latinos who are eligible to register to vote, 250,000 that are registered right now. That means that they can have a big impact in this election.
Castro is just one of many surrogates expected to visit Georgia on behalf of Ossoff and Warnock. President-elect Joe Biden also planning a trip to the Peach State. The voter registration deadline has passed here in Georgia, but people are still able to request their mail-in ballots. Currently, more than 1 million people have requested mail-in ballots. In Athens, Georgia, Annie Anderson.
And let's bring Annie in. Annie, obviously we heard from Mr. Castro. Clearly it's important, the Latino turnout. Just how important is it? Do we have any sense, from the general at least, which way they broke?
You know, here I think Secretary Castro is pretty confident that most of the Latinx people that he has been speaking to will be voting democratically.
Did he give an idea what are the issues that are going to drive him to the polls?
I think the same as everybody. People try and pigeonhole different demographics and different things, but it's the same thing that impacts everybody. You know, is there food on the table? Do they have jobs? How's the economy doing? So it really doesn't change based on demographics for them.
Now, I know in a broader sense, general turnout, special elections, you're going to have a lower number than you will in a regular election. However, we've seen huge numbers already of people that registered to vote or have already requested mail-in ballots here. They're expecting a big number next month, aren't they?
They are. So already they've had more than 1 million mail-in ballot requests, and actually people still have quite a bit of time to request those mail-in ballots. The requests don't have to be received until January 1st. So we can expect that that number is going to go up. Now, as of last check, there are about 43,000 people who have already voted. Now, that is down about 84% from this time during the general election. But again, that's to be expected. I spoke to leaders with the Democratic Party today here in Georgia, and they said that they think that people aren't burnt out from going to the polls and voting. They said they're burnt out from what's happening or not happening in Washington, D.C., and they are not burnt out from going to the polls. And he said, in fact, they're excited to go. Now, again, though, we do know that historically voter turnout is notoriously low in runoff elections, but they are expecting this to be high turnout for a runoff election, and turnout is going to be key in this election.
Last thing, Annie, is obviously you well know, people of the Georgia legislature or even members of statewide, like secretaries of state, have become national figures given all the craziness after the election. Do they believe that next month, in early January, they're ready for this? We're going to get this thing right, or are we going to go through all the craziness that's happened after all these elections in these contested states?
I think it's actually going to be both. Nobody is denying that there is going to be some controversy, and there's going to be like a mini version of what happened in November again. They say that that's going to happen regardless of who wins, and even if everything went perfectly to plan, they are still expecting that just because this is such a hot ticket item. Now, as for the election being secure, everybody I've spoken to or heard from, so Democrats today, the Secretary of State, the governor, they're all very comfortable with the election being secure. In fact, just a few years ago, the Georgia House of Representatives and the Georgia State Senate voted on a new election system saying it was most secure, and both of those parties have Republican majorities. And that's one thing. I spoke to the House Minority Leader here in Georgia today, and he's like, I don't get it. They voted on it. It's their system, and now they're the ones claiming fraud for it.
All right, Annie, great job. We'll talk to you soon. When we come back, everybody, the president, he's doing a victory lap about COVID today, but he glossed over all the hurdles and the challenges that still lie ahead, and you need to know about that photo op. Pfizer, Moderna, they didn't even show up. We'll tell you why.